Let's go. You
Come
ready?
on, let's make
you
it
ready?
happen.
This
Come
the first
on,
one of
let's
the year. Yeah. Let's get them rock.
Oh,
Let's go, champ. Let's go, champ. Lead us, champ. Let's lead us.
Here's the thing. I don't know whether you caught it, but we're starting a long haul, and this is going to take some effort.
Yes.
It's a rocky effort, right? You're going to get knocked down along the way. You think you aren't going to be able to do this, but this is a 1-year effort. You are starting day one of a 1-year effort. And
I'm climbing up on the rough side of the mountain.
So what have you done this last of the year, Jason?
Man.
By the way, I'm Pastor Dan.
And I am Pastor Jason, I guess.
Yeah.
Jason. I prefer Jason, though.
So here we are. I'm Dan Keller, Pastor Dan, Jason Earl, and we're here starting this brand new 365.
Yes.
And the 365 means you're going to last an entire year. Now, what have you done the last exercise program? Do you ever start one?
Dude, do you see this gut that's going that's going up and down every time you see me? No exercise. What have I done for a complete year?
Yeah. Have you done anything?
Love my wife and raise my
There
kids.
you
That's
go.
what I've done.
That's good, man. And that's an effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Those are great.
What about you?
So this is one thing that I have done 25 years in a row. And we're challenging you to join me in something. And our staff have been doing this as a regular basis. We've been doing it every year. And every new staff person that comes on, we say, hey, there's one thing that's required of you. You got to read the 1-year Bible. And so it makes sense for us to engage you in this process of 365. So
time out. So some people just heard you say you've done this 25 years in a row.
Yeah.
And that's like, man, there's no way that I can get started on this journey.
You know, and that's, if you just think about one day at a time, that's really all that matters. And that's why we're doing 365. And every day there's going to be a video to help you learn how to read the Bible. Most people say they want to read the Bible. Yeah. Most people say they want to read it through in a year and they want to understand the Bible. Bible's not always easy to understand. Do you understand everything in here?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But one thing my dad told me at a young age, he said, man, what if you breathed? He asked the question first. What if you breathed like you read the Bible? I was like, oh, got an asthma attack. So, but the other thing he said is if God gives you one day, the least that you can read, at the very minimum is one verse a day.
Yeah.
So this is more than one verse, but it's still a huge.
This is about 20 minutes a day. And so let's just set the context for a little bit. Here's how I want you to consider starting to read this. The way that I want you to do is what we're going to do today. We're going to show you, we're going to model a little bit. We want you to highlight some verses. In the U version, which we're encouraging everyone to do, we're reading it in the New Living Translation. And we want you to consider highlighting a verse or two every day. Take that with you all day. That's something I've been doing for my whole life, is that as I read the version for that day, I highlight a verse and I think about that verse all day long. It surprises to me how many times that verse speaks to the very thing that I'm dealing with that day. Have you had that?
Absolutely. Yeah, or even instant. Sometimes you'll be in a situation or somebody will be talking to you and then something that you read 2 years or like a month ago comes back up and this scenario hits you.
Right. So it's really important for you to highlight a verse, to pick a verse out all of this. Now, sometimes you're going to read the Old Testament and you're going to get a lot out of the Old Testament. Sometimes you're going to read the New Testament, get a lot out of the New Testament. Sometimes Psalms, sometimes Proverbs. And every once in a while, I hit a few days where I don't think there's anything in there. It's really hard. And that's okay if you hit those days. So we want you to highlight verses. The second thing we want you to do is ask questions.
That's great.
Don't look for the answers, just ask the questions. And let your mind think about the questions all day. You'll be surprised how many questions you answer by just asking the questions. These videos will help you think about the answers to those questions. So after you've read, you watch this video, this allows you to gain some knowledge that maybe you didn't have. Now, here's the fun thing, Jason.
Uh-oh.
Every staff person is going to do what we're doing today. They're
Nice.
picking people. They're going to get in here, and not all of them are used to being on camera.
Right.
Not all of them are used to doing this. So you're going to see this very raw version of what's going on.
Authenticity.
Yeah, authenticity. And they're going to get up and they're just going to share their thoughts and their ideas, which should help you. You don't have to have it all figured out. Here's what we're going to do. We're starting a 365 today. Are you with me for a year? Are you going to do this, Jason? 1 year. Are you going to do this?
I'm trying to get my music. Yes, I am. And so here's the thing. Even if you get stuck or you say, man, I'm not motivated to read today after the video, on the U version, which we're going to use, you can actually befriend other people like Facebook or Instagram and follow other people and just say, hey, man, y'all pray for me today because I don't have it.
So if you're not in a group, one of the things that we're going to do for you, we can have up to 50 in groups. So if you're not in a group and you want to be in a group, all you need to do is let us know. And if we know, we'll hook you up with some of your friends and on your contacts so that you can read it together and watch these videos together. Hey, this is a life-changing thing. Now, here's the other thing I noticed is the Bible is like soap for your mind. Every day when you read the Bible, it's like cleaning your mind.
So good.
And I want you to consider that this is going to cleanse your mind this year of the stuff, the garbage in your life that comes in every day. It's soap for your mind. It's like washing your hands every day. It's what we're trying to learn how to do in this coronavirus time,
Yeah, and I don't have a green thumb. Neither does my wife. So in our home, we actually kill a lot of plants. Sorry, Seattle. But what I've learned is even if like a plant looks like it's dying and we begin to water it, it somehow comes back to life. And that's how I see the word of God. Even though your life right now, 2020, has made it feel like the plants died, 2021, let's read the scriptures every day and watch how green you get.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to hear from you. We want to know that things are going well. So let's dig in.
Let's go.
We've been talking we set the scene. We want you to be with us. You've made your commitment. Now we've taken a little more time than we normally will, but Genesis 1 is where we start today. Here we
Let's go.
Genesis 1. I highlighted a couple things. And by the way, this first day reading, you should read like 2 or 3 times. There's so much stuff in the first day. In fact, I'm excited. We're preaching in the series all the way through Genesis, and we're going to add some New Testament stuff. So you're going to see what you're reading in our regular sermons. And I'm excited about this new series that we're started, these beginning series. So not only are you reading this, but we're going to preach about it. So let's talk about it.
Let's go.
Genesis, it starts with the beginning of creation. Some people even wonder, is this true? You ask that question, probably I do too. What about evolution? What about science? How does this square with science? All that sort of stuff. Instead of asking that question, instead of asking that one, what I like to ask is, what does this say? And what does this say to me? And what does this mean for me? But let's talk about that. This is the story of creation. What do you do with that? With evolution and science and all this stuff.
One of my best friends, who's also a comedian, he always says, man, if God clapped his hands, wouldn't that make a big bang?
Hey, that's good stuff. That's good stuff, Jason. That's why we brought you along today. Yeah.
But go ahead.
No, I love it. The Big Bang.
Yes, but the idea is here is what we see is the Bible, which in fact I trust, you trust, is letting us know, God's perspective of how this thing started.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Don't get caught up in the 7 days thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people get caught up in the 7 days. Was it actually 7 days? It says morning and night, but then they hadn't created morning and night in some of those times.
Right.
So here's the thing. That doesn't matter. God could have created the world to seem billions of years old. He could have created all kinds of scientific mysteries. He can do stuff in a moment that we can't understand. One thing that we know that science can't answer is when you go back to the Big Bang, what was before the Big Bang?
Yeah.
What was before that? They don't have the answer to that. What the Bible helps us understand is that there really is a beginning, even though with God there is no beginning.
That's good.
And so this is a series of beginnings for what we can understand. Now, I highlighted a couple verses in
Okay.
Genesis 1. Let the waters swarm with fish and the skies filled with birds. Why do you think I highlighted that? I love to fish.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Day 5.
Right. You almost think you wish it said, and he gave Adam a gun to shoot him, or a rod to catch him.
Maybe.
No, I'm just like,
You're right. I mean, I love animals. I
Yeah.
love the creation. I love all of that. On day 5, he created that. And then I also got this one in verse 27, which is the story of the creation of human beings. To me, that story is so powerful. Created out of the earth, all the livestock and all this. Day 6,
yeah.
he created us.
Absolutely.
And it's powerful. Now, chapter 2 of Genesis is another beginning. Here's what I want you to understand about Genesis. Genesis is a series of creation stories. The first story is a summary of the creation. The second chapter is a restatement of how man was created. And there's a ton in chapter 2, isn't there?
Absolutely. And let me just pause and say, man, I'm so grateful that God's put you in our lives to lead us, because this stuff is so good.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I love, before we move on, one of my favorite verses, because I have 6 kids, is be fruitful and multiply. That's
absolutely. Yeah. The story of how man and women are created, how he created all the animals, but he started with man, and then he created. A lot of us don't understand. In the first chapter, it says that he created the animals and then he created humans. But in the second chapter, he takes that 6th day and he details it out. He starts by creating man, breathing into him the breath of life, and then he brings each animal to him. He names the animals, and he says, verse 20 of chapter 2, he gave the names of all the livestock and the birds, but there was no helper just right for him. You got the sense that God was creating things that he knew man would like, but nothing worked. Yeah. And then he creates woman, and it's an amazing creation.
Yeah, and that is one of the most amazing things about the creation. After God created all this stuff and said that it was good, then he created man, and he said that's the first time he kind of not necessarily took a shot of his creation, but he just said he mentioned something as not being good.
Yeah.
Everything else has been good. Up to this point, it's like it's not good for man to be by himself.
And have you thought about this? And I don't know, we haven't talked about this, but God created us in his own image. God himself understands what it's like to be alone.
Yeah.
And he says it's not good for us to be alone. It's not good for man to be alone. He understood that. He created then woman, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. And this key verse here, this verse gets quoted by Jesus. It gets quoted time and time and time again.
Yes.
This explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one.
Woo!
And the man and the wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. That's a great story.
Absolutely. And that the fact that they were both naked and not ashamed is one of the things that made me fall in love with being married to my wife, in a sense where not necessarily, I'm not going physically, don't y'all start thinking that, but just the idea that, and I can be in my rawest form, and this woman still accepts and loves me.
Yeah, it's really about being vulnerable.
Right.
It's about having somebody in your life that knows everything about you.
Absolutely.
You're naked. Your emotions are naked. Your life is naked. Everything about you is naked. And it's powerful. This is such a great story. There's so much in this. We're going to preach on this, so let's not linger there. But let's go to the Matthew passage here. In Matthew 1 and Matthew 2, did you have anything that stuck out to you in Matthew 1 and 2?
So, I mean, besides the obvious, which everyone always thinks about, just the lineage of Christ. I
don't know that that's obvious.
Yeah, most people skip that. Like, man, that's a long list of names.
Yeah.
I'm always reminded, and this is where we picked my last son's name, Akeem. But then I think about, as a dad,
right there
it is, verse 14.
I didn't know that.
But I also think when you get down to the birth of Christ, and when it's just sharing with us how Joseph, as a man, this woman that he was going to marry, he finds out that she's pregnant, and how every time how God led Joseph in that decision making of what he was going to do at every single step. God consistently spoke to him the same way. And I'm just always reminded that regardless of what step I am and leading my family, God will consistently lead me and help me to make the right decisions.
And I was telling you earlier this morning, we've been to Egypt, and chapter 2 talks a little bit about Jesus going to Egypt.
Yeah.
And when we were in Egypt, we got to go to the actual house where they believed that Jesus and his family was taken and that he stayed there. And there's a church built there. And it's really cool. And you've been to Israel too.
I've been to Israel.
When we see this Bible, it comes alive when you go to Israel, doesn't it?
You're right. Now when you read it now, you go back in your mind. It's like,
absolutely.
I've got this context even set more in my mind.
So the Bible, when you read the Bible, what you need to realize is that these are real places, real people, real history. And the power of the genealogy is that you can actually trace back those families all the way. Unlike our families, we have to do a gene test to figure out where we all came from. And
then for some of us, it's still hard.
Yeah, well, I can't. It stops at one point.
Absolutely,
it stops for me. So I don't know where my lineage goes, but they went all the way back to the beginning, which is kind of amazing in and of itself. And now, how about Psalms 1? What sticks out for you in Psalms 1? I'm just curious. And
Psalms 1 is actually, I think, something that we all that should keep us motivated as we go through these 365 days, and that is, blessed is the man who meditates on God's word all day and all night. And the fact of what it does. Here's the plant analogy again. How he'll yield much fruit in his season.
The trees planted there. That's perfect.
And whatever he does, I don't want to take all of it. But whatever he does, he'll prosper.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you get to the Proverbs, as you begin to read Proverbs 1, you're going to see that each day there's a little psalm, there's a proverb. And if you don't get anything out of anything else, oftentimes you'll get something out of the proverb, some nugget. And this tells the purpose of the proverb, which is to teach people wisdom and discipline. Boy, we all need that in our lives, don't we?
Absolutely.
Wisdom and discipline. So when you get to the Proverbs, realize God's going to give you a nugget of wisdom, and every once in a while, he's going to kick you in the rear and say, I need some discipline out of this.
So true. So true.
Yeah. So as you read this Bible, as you read this 365, I mean, it's going to be an amazing day. Now we got to wrap this up, Jason. So I know, and we got more than we could say. The problem is we got too much. We could talk forever.
Right.
But I'm asking a couple of questions. Ask a couple of questions that you don't have the answer to out of this passage. I have a couple of questions. I say, is it really 7 days? I don't know whether it's 7 days. How did God create the world? I don't know exactly. Was it the Big Bang? The clap. I don't know all of that. Even in Jesus's birth, how did the virgin birth happen?
Yeah.
Those are miracles. How do you even think about God and all of his eternity? So there's a whole lot of questions in these first passages that I don't have the answer to.
Absolutely.
Don't be afraid to ask questions you don't have the answer to. And don't be afraid to just let it sit there. I've read this 25 times. And every time I come back to some of the same questions that I haven't answered yet.
And sometimes us preachers sit around and just ask the question to see if somebody else has a better answer that we've come up with, or help us become unstuck.
So when you're around your friends, take a little bit of time, even in this passage, if you want to, and you want to explore it a little further, take a little time and do that. What are some resources that people can use if they want to dig deeper in this kind of stuff?
One of my favorite resources is a Blue Letter Bible.
Blue Letter Bible's awesome.
Yeah, I go there. Also, soniclight.com. I just go there when I don't have my resources at home.
Another one, in Precepts Austin is another good one, which gives you a whole bunch of resources. And you can download on your own laptop in the original language a version called eSword. Yeah. And that tells you, it'll give you the actual original Hebrew and Greek. And if you're just like that kind of person, you want to dig in,
That's
some
me.
really
I love
fun-
that
that's
stuff.
fun stuff. So I encourage you to do that. Well, we hope this has been helpful. We want you to come back tomorrow. There'll be another video. We're going. Let's go. Hey, let's go out with a video.
Tomorrow,
Here we go.
another video tomorrow.
Yeah, let's
Nice.
make it happen.
Let's go.